Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you so much for starting this session with such a good song. Perfectly appropriate for an 8 p.m. here in Australia or a 5 a.m. for you in Colombia, depending what time people like to party. But it's always lovely to start on such a positive note. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is the last workshop. We had 2 fantastic days, if we can say so ourselves, with a lot of learning. This is it. This is the last one. We are very, very excited to present to you the last challenge of this competition, which is the data and the visualization and application challenge. And I really hope that you have had a chance to maybe already listen to or watch some of the previous panels and workshops that we've had. All the recordings are now available on the website of the hackathon. So please watch those in your own time and familiarize yourself with all the different concepts. But importantly, watch the workshops, because even if you are going to work on this on this challenge of visualizations, you still need to understand the data and the models, and you'll see how everything comes together once you look at those workshops. We watch those workshops as well. But uh, let's commence this particular session. And once again, we have a fantastic lineup of speakers that generously offer their time to be here today to share with us some of their work, but also to be able to answer all your questions. So don't be shy. Please ask any questions that you have. This is the last moment before you're gonna go away in your big weekend of hacking. So any questions you have, this is the time to ask. So with no further ado, I would like to welcome the speakers and ask them to introduce themselves. So if you don't mind, would you mind telling us a bit more about yourself, and then pick another speaker to introduce themselves. So I will start with you, Rodney, if you don't mind.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing? Very excited to be here, full of energy, and I really hope you're up for a lot of work this weekend. So my name is Rodney Phillips. I'm based in Argentina, and I'm a machine learning engineer at work in an OTA called Despegar, which is part of the process group. And my main background is software development. I worked in Project AIMS throughout the years, especially a couple of years ago. And my background is in software engineer and in machine learning operations. So I'm here to try to talk a bit about the importance of uh, actually being able to monitor your machine learning models in some way, but also how you actually do stuff with the machine learning models, and how you make the people that are trying to use the models have the means of understanding what's happening and understand what the models are saying. So I'm very looking forward to this session, and I'm going to nominate Carrie, who's on my right in the roster up there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kerry Mangerson. I'm a Distinguished Professor of Statistics at QUT, and I'm hang out with Adriana. So I'm not actually speaking in this session, but I'm delighted to be here and supporting the team, and looking forward to this session. Back to you, Adriana.
Thank you. Frédéric, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Frédéric Bénard. I work as an AI consultant, currently working at the MILA. It's an AI institute in Montreal, Canada. My background originally was particle physics, and then I moved to software development in large companies, small startups. And for the last 10 years, I've been involved in building products that leverage algorithms, data, and AI. So what I'm currently doing at Mila is to try to showcase the applied research that is happening in real beginnings of real products. And that's what we did with the AIMS project. So we leveraged some of that research, and I'll be demoing what we've done there.
Thank you. Stephen, would you like to go next?
Thanks, Adriana. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Steve Young. I'm Professor of Accounting at Lancaster University in the UK. And my research looks at how to leverage natural language processing and computational linguistics methods to understand and enhance corporate reporting. So we've done work on extracting and processing text, and we've developed some software around that. We've also worked with the regulator in the UK, that's the Financial Reporting Council, to understand what firms are doing, how they're reporting, and where some of the issues are. And it was through one of those projects that we started to look at modern slavery reporting in the UK. And we started to identify some of the deficiencies in modern slavery reporting. And that led us to develop an app to help preparers improve the quality of their reporting by diagnosing areas that they can improve and giving them suggestions on how they might do that. And so that's an AI-powered app that I think you might get some more information about later in this session. You might have seen it already. I'm working on that with my colleague, who's also on the call. So Adriana, if you're happy for me to hand over to Mahmoud. Hi, Mahmoud.
Hi, Steve. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Adriana, for having us. Hello, everyone. I am Mahmoud Gad. I'm an associate professor at Lancaster University Management School. I study corporate reporting and transparency. I work with Steve. We use natural language processing to study corporate reporting, whether it's UK or other regimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm sure some of you've already seen Mahmoud yesterday in one of our sessions when we dive deep into some of the methods that different institutions are using to assess the modern slavery statements and how important it is to coordinate this research and to be able to have accurate benchmarks across the different statements. So if you haven't watched that session, it is session 3 from yesterday. But also, as I mentioned, I really encourage you to go and watch the rest of the sessions, especially relevant, I believe, for this session will be to also watch session 4, the responsible and ethical development of AI for social good. There we had a fantastic lineup of speakers that they explain how to develop tools that are not only good at the purpose that they're created, but they're actually useful for the intended users, especially when you're working with non-for-profits or governments that don't have a lot of resources, that those tools are designed responsibly, not only through the design process, but also for the entire life cycle, and thinking about how they will be maintained by those organizations that maybe don't have some of the best access to resources. So again, I don't want to go through, summarize all the different sessions, but just to really encourage you to watch again at the panels from yesterday, to be able to get a really good understanding from all the lineup of stellar speakers that we had on why are we here and what type of tools are needed in this very interesting and fast-paced environment of using technology against modern slavery. And as we've said a couple of times in Project AIMS, we really focus on the development of data sets and models, and that's what we were presenting in the previous workshops earlier today. But we didn't have a lot of, it was not in the scope of our project to build applications or softwares. So this is why today we will present to you a few demos of different applications that are related to the project. So we have one that is actually developed for this project by Frédéric. So we were really lucky that he joined Mila and consulting Mila on building an actual application. So he will start the demo sessions by presenting his application on the statements and the models that we've developed. But beyond this, then we will have the colleagues from Lancaster University showcasing to us the applications that they built on assessing the UK modern slavery statements. There is, and then following that, there will be, I will run you very high level through the beyond compliance visualization maps that Vasiliki from Wikirate has presented in depth yesterday in session 3. So I'm just going to briefly introduce this, but you should go and watch the full recording of her demo there. And then some other resources that we found online that we thought they are quite similar to what we're expecting for you to do with this challenge. And then we're going to spend the rest of the session going step by step to the challenge and explaining this to you. So with this, maybe I'll just pass it to Frédéric to start the first demo and show us the Conformia platform that you kindly built for this project. Thank you, Frédéric.
I'm trying to share my screen. Let's see. Unmute. All right. Are you guys able to see my video?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's see. I need to restart my Zoom, so sorry about that. I'll just be back in a few seconds.
No problem. We can maybe Mahmoud, if you will be okay on your end to do your part. If not, I can also start with the other resources.
See. Actually, maybe. Okay,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
it works.
Oh,
okay.
It works.
All right. So some background here, as I mentioned, one thing we're trying to do is to communicate the value of the applied research in Mila. And one of the early findings of the AIMS project is that regular LLMs out of the box with zero shot prompting don't do too bad of a job at analyzing these detailed requirements. So what we thought was there could be value in building an app where users can come with their own requirements, their own context, their own documents, and they try it out. So they try using the app to analyze their documents sentence by sentence based on a list of requirements. Of course, if you want to have a super precise results, then that's when you may want to use a specialized model, some of the models that were built during the AIMS project. But the idea is for us was to get people to play with this so that they really get the value of AI and what it could do. So we've built, and in the case of the AIMS project, the one challenge is that there's a lot of LLM calls being made because we're analyzing documents sentence by sentence and requirement by requirement. So this can easily lead to 1,000 LLM calls being made. So we wanted this to be still efficient. So leveraging a pool of workers so that the user can analyze their documents and it doesn't take forever to get the results. And the other element is having some visualization of the results. And that's probably what's interesting to you guys is, okay, my requirement is met or not met, and show me in the document where exactly I'm meeting the requirement. So we wanted to include an element of visualization. So I'll play the video and talk to it as we go along. So this is the About section that discusses what type of requirements you may be able to analyze. The LLM doesn't have the context of the whole document in one go. It's really going sentence by sentence, understanding what the sentence is about. So first is you define your context. So here I'll use the aims context. So you're an analyst that inspects modern slavery declarations. So that's the first thing you knew. So the LLM knows what it's supposed to be an expert on. Then we leverage the very detailed requirements that were created as part of the project. So there's 11 requirements, and these instructions were crafted based on the knowledge gathered during building the data set, testing it, annotating the data. So really this is capturing expert knowledge that will then feed to the LLM. So within the application, you create your requirement list. You can do it one requirement at a time, or you can import a CSV. So that's what we're doing here. So you define your list of requirements. So all these requirements are now captured in a list, and then you upload a document. This is actually a statement from a Canadian company, which we're going to be analyzing against the Australian requirements that are quite similar in a way. So this is the PDF we've uploaded. And what we want to do is create a task to analyze that document based on the context we've defined, the requirement list we've defined. So when we create a task, first we define the context, define the list of requirements, select the document, select the analysis strategy. Right now we only define one, which is sentence level with context. So we walk sentence by sentence with the words before and after in context. And then we get to choose the LLM we want to use. So we've integrated LLMs from OpenAI and from Gemini. Here we're going to be running against GPT-5. So then we start the task. So this is where in the background, we leverage this pool of workers, and then we send all these tasks in parallel to the LLMs to analyze each sentence against each requirement. We use Celery in the background as our worker pool, and Flower is a tool to see the Celery workers. So here we have 8 active workers. We see the jobs that have succeeded, the jobs that have failed. And in the latest implementation, each job is analyzing 10 sentences. So it's a little faster, it's 10 sentences at a time. So we're at 22% done. We're going to speed it up so that we don't just wait. And basically, different LLMs have different speeds. So if we use Mini, for example, GPT 5.0 Mini, it's faster than 5.0. If you use some LLMs that have more thinking, they may take more time. So really, it depends on the LLM. So now we're almost done. And then this is the interesting bit. So let's look at the results. So what we show here is a list of requirements on the left. They are all green, so they've all been successfully matched within the document. And then for each requirement, we can scroll through the document and see the highlighted sections that were used to confirm that the requirement has been met. So the first was for approval, then for signature. So the LLM really identifies bits in the document that were meeting the requirements defined. And if there's no sentences that match the requirements, then the requirements would be shown in red as not matched. So I just show a couple examples here. So this would be useful for a user that really wants to dig down and see what really was used to confirm that it hasn't been met or not. And perhaps the LLM made mistakes, so it's good to have a human in the loop to validate these results. What was not included in the app, but was something that Ames looked at, is to get the LLM to provide a justification so that you can understand exactly what was the justification made, and maybe in there you could say, okay, this is valid or this is not valid. The next thing that we could do is to download the data. So the user can download all the analysis data. So it's a JSON that really looks at all the, the individual sentences that were extracted from the document, the list of requirements, and then which sentences match. So in the case of the document, there's a little over 100 sentences. So we have the original sentence, the process sentence, the sentence in context. So it's easy to use this data to validate the results. And finally, the way we do this highlighting is that we pre-generate one PDF per requirement with the highlighted sections highlighted. So that's how we've managed to show this. And last is we track costs. So in this case, this cost $1.21 US from the LLM calls we made. So that's something to watch for. If you have a big document, the cost can go up. So we are planning to introduce some limits on what users can do, so that they don't run a huge budget not knowingly. So that's the demo. So I'd be happy to get if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Frédéric, and thank you for running through not only the demo but showing us some of the code behind and some of the outputs. And we can maybe discuss when we're going to discuss the challenge. You can think what are some of the elements for each of the demo that you can replicate, and which are the ones that go against maybe what we were aiming for. So try to pick and choose the best. The best elements that respond to the challenge and that you feel comfortable that you can also replicate. But if you are interested in any of those that are presented today, then don't miss the opportunity to ask the question while we still have all the people on the panel, because it will be a bit more difficult over the weekend. So now, Mahmoud, would it be okay if I pass it to you?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So quickly, before showing a demo, I'll just quickly walk through a couple of slides. As mentioned at the end of yesterday's presentation, kind of the app that we are working on starts with the document. So the document is uploaded. We use a visual model to parse this document. and then it's evaluated against 48 criteria. We focus here on criteria developed by investors, but I mean, the model is flexible that we can change the type of criteria used for evaluation. Then there is a benchmark engine, and after evaluating this document, this evaluation can be benchmarked against industry peers, but also companies of similar size. Then a feedback is generated and a report that users can use for follow-up stages. So the feature, as I just mentioned, 48 points analysis, industry benchmarking, as well as some feedback on how to make this report better. I mean, I've tried to map it to the pillars of aims, but I mean, it depends on your goal as a developer. But you can see in our case that I'm going to show you later, we have statement interrogation, so you can upload the statement. It's going to be evaluated. Then there is a gap analysis where the statement is evaluated against certain criteria. But also we have statistics and compliance trends where you have a dashboard that shows the evaluation against peers and companies of similar size. It's deployed to Google Cloud, and it can handle like hundreds and thousands of documents simultaneously. And I'll show you now a quick live demo. Okay, so here is the tool. Kind of this is I'm running this locally because our software engineer team are also working as we speak. So I want to make sure I don't create issues. So I'm running a local version. So this is kind of the interface, starting the analysis. So we have this kind of access code. You can enter the company name, but whatever name you enter, it doesn't matter because the app will pick up the company name from the statement itself. Then as a user, you can identify which industry this company belongs to. So let's say financial industries, and what's the size of this company? Is it amongst the top Financial Times Stock Exchange companies, FTSE 250, FTSE 350? So depending on the size of the company, it's going to be benchmarked against. The statement is then can be uploaded. Just a bit of time. This delay is on my machine, so so let's see any document here. Then we start the analysis. You see these steps are being sent into Google Cloud, and you get kind of each step is marked with check mark once it's done. And while the user is waiting, you can see the user gets important information about modern slavery during this process. Once the process is completed, a report is generated like this with the company compliance score. And this compliance score is divided into categories that are fed into the app already. And then this is the benchmark comparison where the company score is basically benchmarked against industry and also FTSE 100 based on what the user has selected. This is the overall comparison, but then there is also a comparison by category and a quick summary saying that your company is above your kind of industry by 14 points and your company is above your similar size companies by X points. Key strengths, and then some priority improvement. And this is where kind of these priority improvement are moved into plans for the next stage. And then some overall synthesis of the report. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mahmoud. That was so great. And again, you see that there is already some really great work in the field that is very close to what we're aiming to do here with Project AIM. So again, if you see any features that you want to ask more questions about, please do it now, as not these resources are not public, so you won't be able to access them during the weekend. So this is your moment to ask the questions. But I just also want to mention that what we're doing here, it is to show you some examples, but we want to see from your side, your own innovation in your own way of answering the challenge. So we have a question in the chat. I wonder if the presenters have an interest in collaborations from team. Do they have needs for improvement? So we maybe we can take this in the Q&A just to make sure I understand your question exactly. Is it that to work on those particular apps that you've seen, or is it on something else? Tammy, if you don't mind rephrasing a bit your question, that will be useful. And in the meantime, I want to show you some other tools that were, some of them were already shared here in the hackathon. So yesterday in session 3, Vasso from Wikirate has presented this dashboard. So again, in this platform, they have analyzed a few thousand statements. So this is their manual assessment of the statement, and then they're putting all this information together in this visualization, and you can filter information by year or by particular legislation, and then you can dive within the mandatory criteria of the criteria from the beyond compliance assessment. And it gives you the statistics, but if you click on them, they will take you to the original data from the Wikirate platform that generates that particular graph. So again, this visualization is to enable users to make sense of this complex assessment of so many thousands of statements that they've been doing over the last couple of years, and to be able to have this type of very informative visualizations across the different legislations, but also criteria within each of the legislation. So this is again for moving beyond just looking at one statement alone, but looking at trends across different industries and different sectors. And again, let's say we can take the whistleblowing mechanism as a reporting entity, and we can see how it looks in within different legislations and by different years and so on. So there is a very in-depth presentation of this tool in session 3 from yesterday, so you can go there and check this. But also she has also shared with us the repository. The entire code of this visualization platform is made open source, and also the Vega package that she used to build it. So again, I hope that this shows you another example on once you have data assessed that across multiple statements, across many different criteria, you can start building interesting visualization that stakeholders can use. And finally, I want to show you another platform. It is it's something that I came upon on the internet, on LinkedIn, and I asked the creators if they're happy for me to share it. They were really excited about this. So they have built this platform for corporate sustainability reports from the EU. For CSRD. And in this platform, as you can see, you can have a beautiful data set of statements with metadata information, just the way we do when we download it from the registry. And then you can select up to 3 statements, and then you have an AI agent here, like a chatbot, and you can ask a question: are the documents signed? And then it runs the assessment. And then, well, today it's encouraging. It gets an error as it does normally when you do a demo. Let's try one more time. But here, let's say, is this document approved? Let's see if it works. If not, but what it does here, it's very similar to what Frédéric shown. So it has a summary. Yes, this particular document is approved by French security, and then you should be able to go within the actual document, and it should take you to the actual page of the document that is giving you the approval. And sometimes it's also highlights this information with yellow, but again, as this is a very raw demo, you can see there are still limitations. Also, this seems to be a very complex document. We talked a lot about complex PDFs, right? Just the one from Qantas that we showed you as an example. So sometimes those documents are harder. But I wanted you to see this example because once again, this allows you to interrogate the statement and to interact with it and ask many questions that you want, and then to be able to go within the document and see where the answer for that question is. So I hope with all these different demos that you've seen, you're starting to get some ideas on what we are hoping to be some of the features that you are going to build. But maybe now I can run you through the actual hackathon challenge and to give you a sense of the different pillars that we would like you to work on, and then you'll see what features from the different presentations that you've seen will fit into that. So just confirming that you're able to see my document, Google Doc, that is about the challenge. Okay, thanks. Also, feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have any questions. But as we discussed so far, this third challenge is about visualizations and applications. So you've seen from all the previous workshops and panels that ideally we take all these beautiful resources, the data, the models, the resources that even the other colleagues of yours are going to work on their own challenges, but then translate all of these complex tools into a software or an app that will be used by stakeholders. So to do that, so that's the goal for us. We are looking for tools that are ideally, as we discussed a few times already, they are easy to use, easy to understand, and they are free. So we are really encouraging you to look for the open source solutions to run models that are not very computationally intensive. So even from our GitHub, try not to embed here the Llama 3.2, but try to embed the modern BERT, our fine-tuned model. Try to see if you find open source models that you can use the prompts, and you do have all the prompts that we developed. So you can build solutions that resource-constrained environments can use. So this challenge has 3 pillars. You've seen the other challenges also have different pillars. So the first pillar is to be able for a user to interact with a statement and ask questions. So we expect you to, by now you should be very familiar with the Australian, Canadian and UK registries. So we expect you to be able to collect statements from these registries, and then you should have a chatbot that allows you to ask questions. And similar the way we do here, so imagine here you will have imported documents from Australia, Canada, and the UK, and the user say, I'm interested in this document from this country, or I'm interested in these documents from this industry, and now I want to interrogate the documents. And here I can ask a question, but let's say I don't know anything about the modern slavery statements. No problem. We will give you this list of questions that we have already mapped back to the mandatory criteria of the legislation. We have presented this in detail in our previous workshop. So this is part of the AIMS QA paper, and those are the very granular questions that we can ask. So let's say, as a user, I'm curious, I want to ask questions about audits, and when I type here in the chat audit, I would like to have some pop-up suggestions with questions from here, right? So try to see if you can integrate those questions as suggestions for the users. So this could be a feature, so the user doesn't have to ask, and so they can ask any questions they want, but if they need some suggestions from you, you can integrate suggestions based on this and map, this mapping. And if you want an extra challenge, why not add, so this is the back data of that pivot table, and then why not also be able to tell me when you ask this question, what are the studies that have asked these questions? Because as you saw yesterday, there are multiple studies that are asking similar questions. So I want you to also say, by the way, this question is a question asked by the CCLA benchmark. So you can add more information if you want to provide the user with even more confidence why this question is a good question that they can ask. So this is the first pillar. Allow the users to interrogate the statement and download the data. So ask the question, show me where in the document the answer of that question is, just the way Frédéric has done in his work, just similar to the way this website is doing with their own assessment. And then allow the users to download results. What I would suggest, you've heard yesterday from Phil in session 4, the most common output or familiar output that NGOs are with is a CSV. So try not to output the results in maybe formats that computer scientists will use, but try to think about the user as a non-for-profit worker. So most likely try to export them in CSV or things like this. So think about your user in this regard. So this is the first pillar. Is this clear so far? So you bring in the statements, you want to have a chatbot, ask questions. Why not provide the suggested questions from our list that we already shared with you? Help the user identify in the document the information and then download these results. So that's one of the main features of the app. The other feature is, instead of saying, I want this document to interact with it with my own questions, I want to take this document and I want to run an assessment to see if the international template that, once again, you should be really familiar with by now, if this company meets this international reporting template, and what are the informations where the model is, where the statement fails to respond versus the ones that are not, and then showcase the missing elements as recommendations. So this is, you see, very similar to what it's asked for the participants in workshop in challenge 2 with the data, but here you're looking at the software part. How do you integrate this template into the visualization, and then when you call a model to assess a statement based on this template, be able to output these results in a way that it'll be very clear what are the subparts of the elements of the template that are met by the company statement and which are not, and put that in recommendation. Again, I'm emphasizing here that your role is not to build the best AI solution. Just pick one model that you can, simple prompts, or even some of the model we brought. Your role, it is to make the visualization part as smooth as possible for the user to be able to say, I want to take this statement, I want to run it through the template, I want to output the assessment based on the template. And even if your results are completely wrong, that's fine, because your role is not to build the best AI that will do that. That's what your colleagues in Challenge 2 will do. Your role it is to visualize the outputs of that assessment. So that's pillar 2. And again, think about being able to download these results. Now, pillar 3, it's about the statistics, similar to Beyond Compliance. We have now data. You have the full annotated data set for 5,000 documents assessed at the level of high-level compliance. You can start with that, or you can start with try to have more granular data. And the main thing is create dashboards, create a new page of statistics so the user can so at first the user is individually interacting with statements, either by asking questions via the chat, or secondly by assessing them based on the template. But if a user says, I'm interested in all the documents from aerospatial defense industry, and I want to see statistics on compliance, and then I want this type of graphs that I can export, so then I can put it in a presentation and bring it to my board and discuss it. So this will be the third pillar of this. And again, depending on how well you're doing, remember that there are a lot of other ideas that speakers have shared with us throughout the previous panels, where you can work on to differentiate your team versus the others, if you want to add more interesting features or other interesting ideas that you have learned about. We have also all the resources that a lot of them we presented already. You have now the recording for these demos, and the deliverable for this challenge. It is the prototype of your application of your tool that demonstrates the three pillars of this challenge. That you focus on making sure that your outputs are downloadable, and you have you have great ways to access the outputs, that you have clear documentation of everything that you've done, so people can reproduce your tools. Evidence of usability. Remember the user. We have an entire session where we talked about how important it is to think about the user, and then of course submit this to the GitHub per the instructions shared by Joanne. You have here the general evaluation criteria for all the challenges, but then there will be some specific criteria here for this particular challenge. And then we want to make sure we have a big disclaimer. Kerry can also talk a little bit more about this. It's just so we can emphasize what we've been repeating throughout this entire hackathon. This hackathon uses public data, but the purpose of this, it is just for research and education and demonstration only. Please do not make any claims about the companies, especially defamatory claims. Even if your solutions are showing that this company A is at the bottom of a list compared to others, do not take that claim and then say that means that company A is full of slavery and they're the worst or anything like this. This is going to be very bad for everybody involved and is also so against the spirit of this hackathon. So please ensure that you don't make any claims. The reporting of a company doesn't fully showcase its actual actions. We discussed this at large in the previous sessions. Whenever you can present results anonymously, please do that. Acknowledge the limitation of this research, and please do not publicly use your outputs to try to make any claims about the companies. Don't post on social media or in other presentations. This hackathon is not about how well the companies are reporting, but how well are you at building the technical solutions that we need in the future to get there. So Sorry, I know this is a little bit not as exciting, but it's very important to make sure that we protect you and we protect this hackathon, so we don't run into any issues. So all of this will also be in the terms and conditions that you will have to agree with at the end. So this is it. Those are the 3 pillars for this challenge. You have the resources. You have seen some examples of some tools that are developed based on the aims, some of the aims research, based on some of other the research in the UK, or this research is from Germany. Same with the Beyond Compliance one. So use what you think suits you and just show us your own innovation from here. I'm gonna stop here and see if there are any questions in the chat, and then we can yeah, take a few minutes to digest all this, and then we can ask some more questions. So to run do you need a GPU to run Llama 3.0 or ModernBird? Does just querying the LLM needs GPU? Maybe I'll pass this to you, Frédéric. So, as the way you're saying, this morning she's able to use her own laptop to run ModernBird. The Llama 3.2, we always run it on GPU that we have access at Mila. To query an LLM, I don't think I've done all the zero-shot experiments in the papers. I've run them on my own computers with the prompts using GPT, and that worked really fine. Sometimes it was taking maybe half a day because we had lots of sentences, but we didn't need more compute. But I encourage you not to use GPT at all in these experiments, because we can't reimburse you if you have to pay. But also most likely your user will also not have the money to spend on that. So try to find other solutions. But Frédéric, what do you think about that question?
Yeah, if you may need a GPU if you're hosting a version of Llama 3.2. I'm not as familiar with that. I've done all my experiments with models hosted by providers like Gemini and OpenAI and Anthropic.
We will really like you to embed our fine-tuned models. The ModernBird is a very small model. It's very effective, and I also think that's a big differentiation with this work, because we are also having this expert model. But Rodney, when I remember when I presented to you this hackathon, and I had this question about how can people hold, so we only have the weights that we made open already on our GitHub. How can the participants then use that model, because we don't have an IPA that they can call in? So I'm sure there should be techniques on this. Do you mind talking a bit about that? How do you call in a fine-tuned model that you only have the access to its weights?
Sure. I'm not completely familiar with how the weights are serialized, right? Because you have different techniques, you have different ways of actually serializing your machine learning model, either as a Teras or TensorFlow file. It depends slightly. What I would suggest is after getting the weights, you can either spin up the model locally by loading it either into the right framework, right? I'm not sure if it's either PyTorch or Keras or something like that, or I'm most familiar with serializing your model as an ONNX, right? Open Neural Network Exchange, that usually runs independent, and you don't need to have a Python environment in order to run it, because you can just run it in any sort of environment. Other than that, if you have the model locally, you can normally attempt to run it inside a Docker container. I would set up the environment for running whatever model it is in a Docker container. We can maybe dig deeper into that if you have the appropriate format. But when you have your model in a Docker container, or maybe a lighter model, if you're just going to use for development, you can abstract away the actual model output or the requirements you need, because if instead of using a fully trained model, you use some sort of dummy model, but you run it inside a Docker container, you can just develop and have your application interact with the container, and afterwards you can just swap it in production time with some others interface, right? I'm not sure people are following, or if they have some follow-up questions, but the core idea is try to abstract away the actual model in the development phase, or when you're using for developing at this time. Try to use a REST API or something like that to communicate with your model in whatever form it is, and try to put that away inside of some Docker container and some mock interface in terms of speeding up the development, right? For production, there are several ways, but for this challenge, I was just try to not to delve too much onto that complexity, because it will subtract very useful time you have for actually developing the application. But I'm happy to take any other questions if I was not clear.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for answering that. But yeah, so I just want to know is, so you suggested that we can use Docker to containerize our application. So can we assume that, judges for this hackathon, they can use Docker or, any sort of requirements or environment that we use to develop this environment? Or are there any restrictions on what resources we can use?
No, there are no restrictions in terms that we would like you to use whatever you feel comfortable with. I think between all of us, we will have the skills necessary to be able to interpret the results. And if we don't, we're just going to ask you, and we're happy to learn. But as you saw from the workshops, we have a lot of technical capabilities in the judging panel, so that should be fine. And that's why we also didn't go ahead with one particular provider, AWS or NVIDIA or something, and try to narrow all of you to use some particular resources. You can use anything you are comfortable with. You don't have a lot of time. It's just a couple of days for this hackathon. So use whatever you think it's the most useful. And I will just repeat myself to say, try to use small and efficient resources, open source resources, and also resources that you think people that would not have a lot of access to budgets or so on will be able to also deploy. So I think we'll care a lot if you're able to do really good work with small resources, and that's why we're not that fast about you trying to integrate our Llama 3.2, because our modern BERT model that is a lot smaller and just as efficient does a great job. So yeah, we really focus on those aspects more than anything else. Is that clear?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, sorry, because I'm in the challenge for the AI model. So I was just asking about the AI model, and
Okay.
yeah, I understand for this the visualization challenge, probably, yeah, we can use a smaller model, but should we consider a more powerful model for the AI challenge?
So you should you can do again anything that you have access to in everything that you are going to um, feel that is necessary to be able to reach the goal that you want. As I mentioned, we will ask you for or ask everybody in the GitHub to make a disclaimer on the resources you use. So I'm not mistaken, I know you're with Monash University, probably have a lot more access to compute than some other teams. So that's how we want to make sure that we keep track of different level of access that different people have, and then compare the results. So if you're doing excellent work with really great resources and you simply don't have anyone anywhere close to your team, then that's great. But if they're like two teams head in hand, like doing excellent work, but one of them is doing that with a lot of GPUs and the other one is doing it with a lot less resources, I think that will make a bit of differentiation as well. I hope that's clear. We don't want to discourage you to use powerful models and to really take that challenge as far as you think. But I think putting it in the overall context of the hackathon, we also have this extra challenge for you to try to do really good work with a smaller model or more resource. Thinking a bit more about the resources.
Sure. Just one follow-up question on this.
Mhm.
So if to speed up the development process, if we have to use OpenAI API,
Mhm.
so if our solution uses such an API, can we ask the user to use their own API key so that it doesn't cost our account our API key?
So again, that's why I think that's why I mentioned a couple of times that we really, really encourage you not to use the OpenAI API or those that require payment, because we don't expect your team to spend money on this hackathon, and even if you do, we won't be able to reimburse you for that. But also it means that the user, if they want to use your tool, will have to use to pay. However, if you decide to do that with the caveat that then you will be part of your team budget, and you have something really interesting that you want to show us, please go ahead and do that. But again, it might not be possible for others to replicate your work. And as you saw in the criterias of evaluation, we do care a bit about the possibility of replicating this work, and that's why we want to encourage you to maybe even use some of our fine-tuned models. Steve?
Okay.
Yeah, Adriana, I was just coming in on that. I think it's useful for us to emphasize that maybe we're not looking for a finished product. We're more interested in ideas that could be further developed. So you shouldn't feel that you need to produce the perfect solution. I think we're more interested in, have you had some innovative ideas that with further development or with more sophisticated models, they could be implemented in practice. So I think we're more interested in kind of ideas that might be useful for further development rather than you thinking you've got to produce something that's perfect in a first pass.
Absolutely.
Does that sound reasonable, Adriana?
Yes, that's exactly some of the points we made in the previous workshops as well, and also here. That's why we say you don't have to. So for the data challenge, you don't have to make this dashboard with all the thousands of documents that are on the registry. With the AI challenge, we're only going to ask you for a couple of the statements that you send to us, and we're randomly going to select some of them to manually assess the quality of your outputs rather than a classical benchmark. And finally, for this challenge of visualization, build this application with 10 documents, with 100 documents. Don't build it with thousands of documents that it cannot run, because what we want to see is that you address all the three pillars of the challenge, as good as are bad, and then if you have even things on top of that, show us. So it's not about building on all the resources that we share, but rather showing us that you have really thought through the challenge, and that you are showing us a lot of innovation and also limitations. Say, this is how far we could do it, but we think with these tweaks, this will be actually a really good solution.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. That makes sense. Just one last question. Are we going to get a set of questions or criteria that we will, ask, that we will want to assess the statements on?
Yes. So, okay.
Or
So
are
let's.
we to choose questions on our own?
So, let me share my screen again. So if we go into so here, this is the folder you will have. So you'll have it's good to see, you'll have a participants resources folder shared with you at the end of this challenge. And in here, you'll find the details of the challenges. So I want to go to the AI model challenge, right? And this is where we are asking you to go at the challenge at the document level and use the template elements for assessment. So once again, all the challenges are related back to this international reporting template that we have had an entire workshop on. So if we go here on the first day, we have had this session from the government presenting the three legislation and starting to present this template. And then I did a specific workshop only on the template. So what you'll be asked to assess a document on are those granular questions as outlined in this template and map back to the mandatory criteria. If you want to assess something different, so let's say you are more interested in the methodology that was presented yesterday in this session by Pam from Monash, let's say, you can look at the questions she presented in her presentation and try to use those questions if you want, but as long as you are ensuring that, so here are her questions, right? And if you look at those questions, you will immediately be able to map them also back to the template. So nothing stops you to map them to the template and assess them, as long as you are using this template as your guide on what you're assessing. Does it make sense?
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
So we will share those briefs for each of the challenge. So you'll find them right here in the challenges. So you'll have one for AI models, one for applications, and one for the data mining and processing. And this Ames QA is for this particular challenge that we're looking at now, because those are the questions, right? The ones from here, these more granular questions that we think you should provide as suggestions to a user when it's asking a question. Say audit, and then here should be a pop-up with a question from here that has the word audit in there, for the user to have some suggestions on what are some of the good questions developed by academia and civic society around audits when assessing a statement. Okay. So I hope by now, as you've already listened to all the three challenges, you see why we are asking something in the data challenge and then something in the machine learning one, and how they all come together also on this last challenge with the visualization, because in the end, we will hope to be able to move this into a phase where we can pick the best tools or ideas, and maybe, who knows, maybe in the future we can all collaborate in building something together that works really well. But also, we also have the Blue Sky Innovation. I already met some of you that are going to work on that, and there's some really great ideas. Very little to do with the statements and everything, but that's why it's a Blue Sky Innovation, and we're really excited to see what's going to happen there. And I'm still going to be available throughout the weekend to join you. So your teams, once you have had a good brainstorm, a good idea, if you need some feedback, I'm happy to join a meeting with you and discuss your ideas, provide you some feedbacks, and also clarify. I know that these 2 days have been full of learning. And a lot of material. We are very familiar with all this material, but if you've never heard anything about modern slavery, these laws and these statements, probably it's a lot happening. So please never feel like you have a question that is not good enough. You can always ask questions, and we'll try to answer. Maybe are there any other questions or any other reflections from the speakers? Any advice for the participants?
Maybe I'd like to further emphasize, especially since this is one of several other challenges. I would advise for you to try to reduce the complexity of what you're doing and try to focus. Remember here, the focus is the stakeholder, the prototype of the application, and try not to get swamped by things like, oh, am I using the right visualization? I mean, not the right visualization, but I'm showing the right data here. Mock everything you can, right? Try to have a mindset in which you want to say, okay, the actual data that I'm going to show here, it's maybe not the most important part now, right? I have to focus on actually having something that I can navigate, show, and use as a prototype. Don't try to get too worried about the actual data are going to change. You can use some mock data that's at some point, design a good interface for you to swap it with real data later and move on, right? That will help you speed up your work, and that will help you focus on what's really important for the challenge.
Thank you so much, Rodney.
Yeah, in the same line of Rodney's comments, I would like to ask you, like, what advice do you have for the teams actually to work in a team very efficiently in the common days? They are going to have 3 or 4 days actually to develop these solutions. And actually what you say was really useful, like focus on this, not put much attention to all those other things. So you are developers, you work on this, and sure that you have to, design some solutions against the clock. So if you have to share other advices regarding teamwork, regarding coordination, regarding how to really engage the whole team to work in a really efficient way to accomplish the goal of the competition, what would be your advice?
Was it directed to me? Sorry, I just missed the first part.
To you and to everyone, actually. It would be awesome
Okay.
to have like different perspectives and pieces of advice from everyone in the call.
Okay, I can start. I think important is invest some time at the beginning to really decide on what you want to do, and be clear on that. So pick one challenge. Please don't work on multiple challenges. The challenges are already very complex, so we only expect you to work on one challenge, and then make a plan on how to address the pillars. Look at what we have said. If anything is not clear, just drop us a quick text on WhatsApp. We will pick it up as soon as we're awake, but we are awake from across the globes at all times, so somebody should be able to answer to you. And then divide and conquer. And then maybe the last thing I would say is experiment quick. Don't experiment on thousands of documents. Experiment on one, two, see what works, fix it, move on. Because you will see, especially with the large, like if you work on prompts, we were giving a lot of examples today. Sometimes the prediction is perfect. When you look at the reasoning, you realize the model is hallucinating, is saying so many bad things, or there are issues with the frameworks you're using, on restrictions or number of words or so on. But if you experiment quick and test and then learn from that and build, I think you'll be able to build something very successful. And I really hope you have good teams so you can divide the work equally. And you don't have just one star in your team that does all the work, but rather everybody's pulling their weight. So yeah, that would be my, those will be my thoughts.
So maybe in terms of coordination, that was part of Sebastian's questions. It would be a good idea. I mean, I'm not familiar with how you inside the teams, how people are actually do have the what kind of relation or physical connectivity they have, right? But it would be very clear about what you're going to do, what you're going to try to accomplish, and how well you're doing with that. And don't assume the rest knows what you are doing, and don't assume the rest knows at what point you are. I mean, talking is very nice. Talking to people, use communicate effectively, right? I say I'm focusing on this. I expect to accomplish that, and since you don't have a lot of time, be I don't say establish like daily checkpoints every 4 or 5 hours, because maybe that's beyond the spirit of this, right? But do be very transparent about what you're doing, and try not to get stamped on things for a very long time, right? It even helps you when you're having a hard problem. Just okay, you have a lot of things on your plate, so you don't have to gnaw at this problem now and then don't stop until it's solved, right? You can maybe start with one thing, get to a reasonable point. If you cannot solve it, okay, leave it at a point where you can take it on again later and move to something else. And right, for you and for your colleagues, the thing you're doing, what point you manage to get to, and how you plan to go ahead, right? But two things. So use your time wisely. Don't spend too much time on a thing if you're stuck, and be very transparent to your colleagues about what you're doing, what you expect to accomplish, and check up on them and then on you, so you can move forward very quickly. There was a very fun sketch here in Argentina. We have a group called Le Luthier, and in one of the jokes was that two people agreed to write a song, right? And they agreed to write the song, and they both met again 6 months later, and they found that both of them had worked on the music, and none of them had worked on the actual lyrics of the song, right? So try not to do that, and be very transparent to your teams.
Thank you. That's a good advice. And I think that it's really useful actually to consider. Like many times we assume that the rest of the team like have our same vision, or that have the goal in mind, and that's sometimes not what happens. So thank you very much for sharing that. And then I think that we have a couple of questions more on the chat.
Oh, I'm answering this, but it'll be easier if I can speak. So Tammy is asking who the users are and what they would like to do. As I was saying, that I think so a lot of the panelists that were speaking yesterday, they come from NGOs or governments, and they emphasize very clearly on the needs and what they would like to see. So they even have some slides where they put out some of the features they would like to see. But for instance, Clea, the head of risk from the business perspective, she was saying, remember, I'm not a technological person. I am interested to be able to go to a statement, ask questions. So that's why we're asking you for that feature. Is this document signed? Is this document approved? Great. I want to also have some comparative statistics. So the beyond compliance graphs or the ones Mahmoud have showed you. So you put a statement in the context of its own industry, or you have multiple statements from the same industry or turnover or different years, and then you want to export a graph, and then use that graph as I mentioned, in a board meeting, but also maybe in a research paper or report, more likely for them. So something that, as a user that doesn't have much coding experience, can go and interact with the document, or pull out statistics at high level that will be insightful, so then they can go and use that information in their day-to-day work.
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, absolutely.
What I'm trying to imagine is the NGO user. The government users, both the NGO and the government users did clarify what they need from it. The step that I'm missing is like the scenario when they're going to their board, the NGO person has gone to the dashboard. Do we have any models of this type of report that an NGO board might want to see on this issue? Even short, anything like that, like the end result is what's still not quite clear for me for the NGOs.
Yeah, so you can use the beyond compliance as an example. They have graphs on multiple statements per year, or how many companies are describing incidents, how many companies are talking about whistleblower mechanisms, and so on, and exporting that in a graph that is clear. And that's the end for the visualization and statistics part. What the user will do with that, most likely, as I mentioned, is going to use it for their own learning or reporting. But that's we also want to see from you your own way of visualizing that data that is more impactful. Maybe instead of having this type of graphs like we saw from Beyond Compliance, maybe you will have more visualizations on maps, or interactive visualizations that the user can play with, and so on and so forth. So we will also like to see from you some of those ideas coming together. But the end is just a summary statistic, then it's accurate and it makes sense. Thank you, Tammy, for your question. I see a few more questions here. Our team is focused. So our team is focused on this, and we would like to know if the data set for modern slavery statement has been processed for this challenge. Additionally, if we are required to conduct data processing ourselves, would that be conducted as an overlapping with data enrichment challenge? So the data set that you're going to use here are the raw documents from the registry, and whenever you need to do processing, you can use some of the pre-processing that we've done. So you can use a small sample, for instance, of the Australian documents for this visualization challenge. So those documents should then they are available, they're pre-processed, but you can also pre-process them as well if you like. So again, we're not going to mark you on how well you're pre-processing data, or how well the model that you picked to use in the assessment of the template, for instance, is performing, but rather that you have the right connections between all these steps with your application. So Yes, the short answer, the Australian documents are pre-processed. There are a couple of UK and Canadian documents that are being pre-processed. They're all already available on the GitHub, on Figshare, on Hugging Face, so you can access that. Nothing stops you from processing them in a different way that you'll find more useful. Again, remember, our own limitation is that we were never able to extract text from images and text. If you have a better idea on how to do that, then you can quickly add it to your part, that'll be great, but you won't be tested on how well you extract the data from the documents. That's indeed in the other challenge. Is that clear? Okay. So again, for this challenge, don't expect that you will have to show us thousands of documents. Just pick a couple of documents and just show us that your application works for the 3 different pillars of the challenge. So try to use as many resources that are out there already. So thank you. Actually, that's a really good question, the one about the data pre-processing. And again, you have models already that are have been developed. Like you can take our modern BERT, it's really small. You can call an open model and you can use the prompts. We shared all of this already with you today. So you should have all the resources you need. You just need to put them together in a way that they function well, which I know it sounds a lot easier than it will be, but that's why we're excited to have you help us with doing that. But maybe I can ask Frédéric or Mahmoud, how did you pre-process the data before putting it in the application? Any advice on that?
On my part, we leveraged some of the pre-processing that was part of the AIMS project. So we use PyMu PDF to extract content from PDF. And then there was some rules on how to transform that data to standardize it a little bit in terms of carriage returns and spaces and things like that. And one limitation with PyMu PDF is it doesn't extract content from tables and from images very well. So for other projects, we've leveraged vision language models to extract content and it works better, but you need a key and you need to pay for that. It's not free.
In our case, we are using also vision language models to deal with this through Google Cloud functions.
Would you have a link to some of those resources that we can share with the participants?
The tradition, so we are using Gemini in our case, but I'm sure there are free models, free vision language models actually now that can handle these types of documents. Some of them are I think, lightweight. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think even for the challenge of data extraction, we really encourage you to look into the multimodals and multimodal models and really try to use some of this innovation that it's really now catching a lot of momentum. But let's see what you decide to do. But that can also be used here, and hopefully, if anyone in your team, even if you're in this software challenge, has a bit of machine learning expertise, hopefully you can call in some of these models to help you. But if not, you can also repurpose the data that we pre-processed. Okay. Any other questions? If not, in terms of admin, so Sebastian and Joanne will be able to confirm this, but we will be able to share that drive with you. So you have the description of the challenges there. Hopefully, you will be able to go back to the recordings of all the different sessions and access the information from there. You should have access to our resources, and for anything else, you can just ask us more questions. We have one question here from Federico.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the UI performance. So you mentioned we should try to mock as much as we can so that we don't waste time developing an actual solution that doesn't have anything to do with the UI. However, if we do mock some things, we won't be able to notice whether the performance of the UI is bad. So for example, Frédéric's UI took quite a while to load, and I wanted to ask, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I wanted to ask if that would be penalized or if that would be considered in evaluation of our solutions.
What do you think, Rodney?
Well, it's a very good point. Maybe let me put it like this. The actual data you're going to mock for some of these things, you don't really mind the content, right? Because if you're going to let's say show a table, you can either mock data with 3 entries or you can mock data with 5,000 entries, right? And if you mock with 5,000 entries, you can have your UI handle that iteratively or paginate or things like that, right? So what I would focus on is maybe designing the the APIs or the interaction that you have in your application with that in mind, but not maybe worrying too much about having actually mocked those 5,000 lines. Just make sure that in your interface you put some thought into have your if you do know that you mocked some data, okay, make sure it works for your prototype and at least stop or declare in some way or prepare your application if possible about how you would handle a bigger load, right? I mean, maybe I would put the focus here on the design, the usability, and not necessarily codifying the handling of a bigger load, but making sure that it suits the interface, right? I mean, you're not going to have one very long list, you are going to have some paginations associated like that. If you're going to do some bar chart, okay, make sure it's capped at some point and it's not going to display whatever you're sending from the server. I would focus on that.
Okay, so but if we have to choose between spending time on some of those optimizations, let's say in pagination, between that and some better usability improvements, which one should we spend time on?
Usability, and make sure that it's good for, I mean, it's suitable for the user, because when you would actually go about implementing that, pagination or things like that would be something very easy to solve. A redesign of the interface would not.
All right, thanks.
I'm also answering some questions on the WhatsApp group. Again, I know some of you have struggled downloading the data from the Figshare. I am trying on my local computer now to unzip them and try to see if I can put them in separate files and so on. I'm not sure if this will happen by the end of tonight, so it might be in the morning, but I'll really, really encourage you once again, watch the workshop from data. Pierre-Luc, who is the one who has built the deep lake, has explained it in depth. And also, we don't think you need a deep lake except if you're going to do some really intricate work on the models and so on. So before trying to download this huge data set, really think if you need it. You certainly won't need it for this for this challenge, for instance, except if you want to access this pre-processing part, but I think it will be a lot easier for you to run a couple of documents through an open source Python, like even the one we told you we use, like my PDF, then downloading many gigabytes of data and try to understand it. So before deciding to download the deep lake, think if you really need it, or if you are able already to use some of the other data sources that we shared with you that are a little bit more accessible. But I will try to see if I can break down the folders from the deep lake and make this available to you. But if you don't need that level of granularity, I think getting the deep lake to work and then to understand it and so on might take you a lot more time. And then if you won't need it, you lose probably half of a day just on that. But if you do need it, see if you can download it. Hopefully your internet works good enough. I will also try to provide that information in a better way. And then if you have troubles of making it work after you've read in depth the GitHub, let us know, and maybe we can get Pierre-Luc or Duoy or somebody else to help you with that.